Hey everyone, Spot of Nerd here with a brand new episode. And first and foremost, before we get the ball rolling, I want to emphasize that this is going to be probably a heavy episode, a heavy review type discussion, a heavy topic in relation to current events, specifically at college campuses, but mainly in history and some of, if not the worst, human crimes against humanity, if that's the way to say it, that has ever been committed. It revolves around the Jewish community, but specifically the Holocaust. So just want to prepare you, if you're not really into that type of topic or those subjects, feel free to check out some of the other channel, or not the other channels, but some of the other episodes, a little bit more lighthearted. But I think now more than ever, it is truly important to discuss this, specifically because that's what we do with this channel, is we review television, we review movies, but we also have real life discussions, politics, society, culture, etc. I wanted to wait until the full series was out, but they just finished the series called We Were the Lucky Ones, and there's also a movie so you can watch the show on Hulu or Disney if you have the package, and then the movie is called The Zone of Interest. That can be seen on Max if you have Max, and they are two of the most powerful series and movies I have ever seen in my life, and I swear to you people, they are needed more now than ever. Let's get to it. Let's review this, because we also need to get to the topic of the very same things, regardless of that they might be in different scenarios. The definition that history repeats itself is on full display right here, right now, in 2024. Now, we don't need to go down the road. You know what to do if you wouldn't mind continuing to support this channel. I'll just put that out there. But I'm also going to put a little bit of a spoiler warning here, mainly in regards to the series We Were the Lucky Ones and the Zone of Interest movie that I've just watched. There isn't really any spoilers to history. These are based off of real people, real events, but portrayed, of course, through cinema. At the same time, if you want to experience it on your own, I would almost encourage you to, and then come back and watch this, because we can then discuss it. I'd love to know your comments, what you thought about it, if you've seen this series or if you've seen this movie. We'll start specifically with the film, The Zone of Interest, and I apologize, but it actually did win 2024's Best Picture for, I think it was international. There's not enough words for me to describe how incredible, and I don't mean that in a support for the Holocaust or whatever, but just the way that this movie was done. So I'm going to kind of go over it briefly, and then we'll move forward. But what it's based off of is a high-level SS general, sergeant, whatever it might be, that him and his family lived next to a concentration camp, specifically Warsaw. The entire movie is dubbed because everybody's speaking German, and you might, to kind of give you a bit of I don't mean this in I don't know the word to use, but you don't ever see anything. Now, if you are knowledgeable around the Holocaust and the most horrific event in human history, if you ask me, which was this, there's some pretty disturbing shit out there. As far as if you've read your history books, if you've seen videos, the Nuremberg trials, if you ever want to learn the outcome to essentially the repercussions, the consequences, etc., to those that implemented the Holocaust, I would encourage you to do so, because it is, I don't know what the right words to use, but Was it good to see that these men and women were punished for what they did? Sure, one could say that. But at the same time, the fact that this happened, I think, is the biggest discussion that we are continuing to have to this very day, specifically with college campuses and the protests currently going on, which we will get to a little bit more at the end of this video. But back to the film. So you have this general, and he's a real person. You can look him up in history. I apologize, I'm terrible with names. You know this channel, I just forget. But again, doesn't matter. You have this general, he lives next to Warsaw, and the entire film is based off of his life throughout World War II during this time period right next door to a concentration camp. And the way that the director kind of filmed it was in relation to, you're not going to see anything. You're not going to see the atrocities, the killings, the blood, the murder, the torture of Jewish individuals. But you're going to be you're going to see his world, but you're going to know what's going around him. And I'll give you some examples. So as you can probably imagine, during this time period, SS guys like this, they would use the Jewish concentration camp members as slaves, essentially. So there's one specific scene where you have this little boy, and he must not be more than 8 to 10 years old. And obviously, the general guy, he's finished up his day, and he puts his boots outside. Little boy comes over because his job is to clean up the boots. So there's an outside little drain, and he goes and he starts to clean these boots. And all you see coming off of his boots is red. So it's that psychological feeling, it's that psychological portrayal of just what these people are enduring, because the red is blood. Let's just be very clear, it's blood coming off of his shoes. It gets to a point where you are just shocked in relation to, the best way I can describe it is reading history during this time, reading about the Holocaust. It is scary how many people just turned a blind eye. Now, I can only say that from my opinion. I can only say that from my interpretation of what I've read during this time period, or what I've seen through history, footage, etc. But one of the worst things, again, about the film, not the film, but just the portrayal was, so this SS general's wife, she's obviously taking care of the children. She's got her own, I guess, slave type individuals running the household, cleaning things. And in the very beginning, she gets this mink coat, like this fur coat, and it's like, she's literally, when you buy a new jacket and you're kind of in the fitting rooms and you're kind of seeing how it looks on you, and that came off of a body. Doesn't even straight over her head in relation to the fact that recently came off of a human body, and now she's just willy-nilly, look at me, I've got a brand new coat. All the while she's sleeping not 100 feet right next door to the most horrific crimes against humanity. It is just, again, I know I'm a broken record if you know this channel. The psychological aspect in the zone of interest is incredible. And I don't mean that in a positive way, obviously. I simply mean that in the way they direct it, the way they film this, the way the actors are. It's absolutely amazing. It really, really is, because it really shows the dark side of humanity without even showing you anything. And I mean that in, you're not seeing blood, you're not seeing bodies, you're not seeing death. You're simply seeing, for example, the family might just be having a pool party outside. They literally have a backyard, beautiful garden, beautiful roses, and all you can hear in the background are screams, and just screams of torture and murder, gunshots, people being ripped apart in terms of their families, the most vile things that were done to people. I even read recently, and you can go and look this up, and this is one of the biggest things I don't take for granted, but I really take pride in, specifically with this channel, whether we're talking politics or movies or reviews, is factual information. And I recently just found out Bayer, the medicinal company, the pharmaceutical company, you might have heard the Bayer, I think they make headache medications. For me, they make some other medications that I take, and it kind of makes me a little bit sick to my stomach that I take this medication But the fact is, their origins were created during the Holocaust. And there was a scientist, a German scientist, who literally used 150 women to start medical studies to basically find medications and, medical studies to try and figure out quote unquote cures to things, blah, 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 blah. When it first started, all 150 women died related to medicine reactions, blah, 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 blah. And there's documentation of this doctor basically saying, those first 150 women are dead. I need another 150. And then I need another 150. And then I need another 150. The experimentation alone on humankind should make you throw up in your stomach. Or throw up, sorry, bad words, but you know what I'm going with that. The final piece I'll say about the film, and I encourage you, 4 cups of tea out of 4 cups of tea from Spot of Nerd, you have to go and watch this film. At the end of the movie, they're starting to talk about, the war is building down. Obviously, they've got to pick up the pace in killing, let's be real, the murder of millions of Jewish individuals. And you can kind of see that this general almost has a bit of reluctance. He's finally realized he's become almost too good at killing people, at murdering people, the gas chambers, etc., so on and so forth. And the most, I say beautiful in a way of the creativity and the way they've done this film. So he's going down a flight of stairs in Berlin, the SS general. And he starts to upchuck, almost like you're about to be sick. And then it does a flash forward to the actual Warsaw Museum that you can go and visit today. You can go and actually see these concentration camps and the horrificness that they were. And it's showing, this is the cherry on the top. It's showing the service people that work there today, cleaning the windows, they're vacuuming the floors, inside of these gas chambers where millions of people were murdered without a second thought, all because of their Jewish faith. And I think it's one of the best scenes in cinema history I've ever witnessed, because the metaphor in relation to that scene is, you can't clean away that history. Humankind can't clean the history away enough. During the end of the Holocaust, during the end of the war, the Germans tried desperately to not only get rid of as many Jews as they possibly could, but they also tried to erase the atrocities that they committed. They blew up the gas chambers, or some of them. They tried to burn papers, blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, in the film, what it's showing you is that you can't erase that atrocity. You can't erase what was done. The mounds, the thousands of shoes, the clothing, the names. There's walls of just people and their faces. And they had a name. These people have names. And over 6 million of them were brutally tortured and murdered, and everything in between, just because of who they believed in, what their faith was, culture, etc., so on and so forth. And it is just, after watching this film, when the credits roll, you are literally just kind of taking a step back and go, you feel like absolute shit. You really, really feel like absolute shit. Because not only did just normal day citizens, whether Germany or even whatever it might be, they didn't know, they kind of knew, again, we don't need to go down that road. They kind of knew what was happening, but nobody did anything about it. So you would see smokestacks. There's even history books where people had, they felt ash falling from the sky like a wildfire, not knowing that ash was human beings. Literally human ash was falling onto their skin as they went about their day. Imagine you go to the mall, imagine you go to Target, the grocery store, and all of a sudden some ash falls on you, and that is human bodies. That is human bodies. It is fucked up. beyond belief. Beyond belief. And it happened. And the saddest truth, we won't go there again. I know I could go on this topic for hours. Move forward into history and look at where we are today. Look at these campuses with protests about, there are literally Jewish people today in school on these campuses facing the exact same scenario that they did back in the 1930s, the 1940s, and of course during World War II. It's no different. There is no difference between what happened back then and what is happening right now. And if you are not paying attention to that, I highly encourage that you do, because it is completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. The anti-Semitism that was going on back then is the exact same that is going on right now. It all started with hatred towards one group. It ended with millions of dead bodies. Millions of dead people. Let's not forget that. And I promise you, I never will forget that. So moving on, I know it's a little heavy, but keep going with me. I just think it's so important to really talk about this stuff, because another thing I've got to give credit, we'll go on to the television series now, We Were the Lucky Ones, which is streaming on Hulu as well as Disney. What I have to give credit to is the fact that, as much as we do talk about, and other channels right now similar to mine, that, you know, the message, the woke culture in Hollywood, blah blah blah, I was actually very surprised that this series was even made, because again, We Were the Lucky Ones is a show about a family, very large Jewish family, that during World War II got split up. You know, some people ended up in Brazil, some people ended up in Italy, but the entire series goes from the beginning of the war, just before the beginning of World War II, all the way through the end. It's 8 episodes. It speaks to the level of strength. Now this is, I know this might sound a little weird, but go with me on it. The show is a little more positive in relation to the strength of love, the strength of family, the strength that you will go to the ends of the earth for your family. And I think that would be the biggest message I would give to you. It starts off with the invasion of Poland, and it moves from there. So you have this, I'm terrible with the names. There's a lot of names. You're going to get to learn a lot of people, but it goes throughout in relation to, she marries one of these other Jewish community members who's really good at faking passports so that they can get around things. But it also shows the journey of, you know, the concentration camps, the ghettos, all this other stuff. Because you have to remember too, during this time period, you know, they would have protests where they would just bring Jewish people out into the streets and kill them. Literally just bring them out and kill them. It obviously moves forward in the war, in the entire Holocaust aspect, where, you know, if you were Jewish, you obviously had to wear the star, you had to wear the patch on a piece of clothing or whatever it might have been. And there's scenes in it, like I said, of, you know, they're hiding in basements for months at a time. They're hiding behind walls. Different topic, but Inglourious Bastards, you know, they're hiding under the floorboards because they could be killed or murdered at any moment. And one of the most powerful scenes, and I'll talk about this and we'll just kind of maybe wrap things up, or at least get to the end of the series and go from there. One of the most powerful scenes was the manipulation behind the Holocaust, where the Germans would basically trick Jewish people into believing that, hey, here's an out. Here's a way that I'm going to get you out and get you free. But what instead they were doing was they were collecting people together so that they could basically mass murder them. And I'm going to give you a scene here that I was just like jaw dropped on the floor for at least a week, if not longer. So you have this one of the family members, beautiful gal, and she's got this daughter. The dad and her, they got split up again during the early parts of the war. So they find I don't know what the word is, but they find a way that somehow, some way, they can get out. They can get out of Poland. They can get out of this crazy, horrible situation and basically go somewhere else in Europe, Spain or France, whatever it is. So they board a truck, and the truck drives them out, and then the truck veers off into the woods. And it's just like, wow. Again, I can't come up with enough words. So there's just 20 or 30 people. There's shovels on the ground, and these German soldiers, guns to their heads, are basically saying, start digging. Start digging. So they start digging because, I mean, you got a gun to your head. You don't know what the hell's going on. You thought you were going to get away to freedom and blah, 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 blah. And so you're digging for hours. So after a few hours, there's this giant moat. Now remember, this woman has a child with her. This child is no more than 2 or 3 years old. So that child is going, what the hell is in, she has figured it out. This woman, the mother, has figured it out. I am about to die. I am literally digging my own grave. What am I going to do with my daughter? Like, the daughter is just a child. They don't know what's going on, but this shit actually happened. If you look back in the history books, there's actual footage of this shit if you literally do your research. So the soldiers finally say, enough, take off your clothes, because they want to make sure that they are humiliated in their last moments of life. And then, as you might imagine, what is the next thing that happens? They start blowing people away. It is just, damn, wow, shocking, everything that you can imagine. Now, spoiler, yes, the mother tells the little girl, you need to go and pretend that one of those people, like, there's another female that kind of starts flirting with the soldiers to try to obviously make sure that these people know what's happening. They're about to literally die because they're digging their own graves. So you're desperate. You would do anything to try to get away from it. So she tells her daughter, you see the woman over there who's flirting with a soldier? Run up to her and start screaming, mommy, 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 to try and pretend like, hey, that's your mother. Because she knew she's dead. There's no matter what. She's dead. It's gone. It's over. But at least maybe her child could somehow, some way survive. She starts running after the kid because it's just, I can't even imagine what that would have been like. To just know that you are forcefully being told to dig your grave. You're forced to take your clothes off in humiliation, and you're about to die with your child. What would you do in that scenario? Because they're the ones with the guns. Sure, there's 20 or 30 of you, but what are you going to do in that situation? The mother runs. She has some jewelry on her. The soldier kind of goes, okay, I'll take you. You can go back in the truck. And the story progresses from there. But it just is, when I read shit about like that in the history books, when I see it in a series like that, albeit this is just a series, it's fictitious in relation to the show, but this shit actually happened. I'm going to reinforce that 1,000 times. Humanity let this shit happen. Not just once, but multiple times. We won't even get into the Rwanda situation in the later 1900s. Like it was 1970 or 80s, I think it was like that. Humanity let this happen. And we continue to let this happen. Cut a long story short, I'll wrap this episode up. At the end of the series, it's beautiful because it tells the story that everybody finally does get back together. It took years, it took months for everybody to come together again because everybody's around different parts of the world. And they were able to literally come back and find each other. And the most amazing thing at the end of the series is it shows you what is happening now. This family has expanded tenfold. What used to be 10 or 8 to 10 family members, there's now over 100 family members. And there's real pictures and there's real videos of this family. And it makes you genuinely cry your eyes out because it's just, this family fought tooth and nail to survive the most atrocious crimes in human history. And it just shows the passion and the fight that they had inside of each and every one of them to make sure that they came back together and they were once again a family unit. And it's something, we don't need to go down that road. It is so missing today in relation to the family unit. I don't care who you are, what you are, but having a solid family is so lacking today, which is leading to what is happening right now in these universities during these protests. Palestine this, Palestine that. And if you haven't figured it out, this is where I'll put the practical political hat on. This is all by design. You can quote me on that. You can talk shit about me, troll me, whatever you want to do. But you cannot deny for a fact that right now this is all by design. You have the biggest election ever in human history, at least in America, in my opinion, right here, right now in 2024. The world is getting crazy, and I've always had, I've got to be careful sometimes with what I talk about, but I'm pretty sure you can gather where I'm going with that. This movie and this show is basically showing you what we are walking into as we speak today. This is how it starts. Look at the COVID situation. Look at the protest situation. This is all by design to literally repeat history. And you think by your cellular phone that if I just do something and I'm doing something, blah, 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 or if I'm at one of these protests and I'm speaking out against XYZ, I'm doing something. Sure. Okay. What are you really doing? Have you seen these places? Have you been to these places? Have you read a history book? Have you seen what humanity is capable of? Because I'll tell you what, humanity is capable of the most horrific crimes against one another. All because of what you believe, of what you believe in, of who you are, of what you might represent. And I don't know about y'all, but I am sure as hell done not talking about it, or not opening up about it, or simply turning a blind eye. I'm just one person, and I hope even just by having this channel, by having these discussions, somebody somewhere is watching this or listening to this on the podcast Spotify and going, maybe I should look more into this. Maybe I should watch that show. Maybe I should watch that movie to see what he's talking about. And I hope that maybe somebody somewhere is just having a second thought and going, damn, that's pretty fucked up. It's crazy what we did. It's crazy what humans can do to one another to this very day. Because it didn't start with gas chambers. It didn't start with mass murder. It didn't start with concentration camps. It started with protests, and it started with hatred towards somebody else who was different than you. That's all it took. And so many people, millions of people around the world, turned a blind eye and looked the other way and said, I just figured somebody else was probably going to do something about it. Or my personal favorite, and I'm being sarcastic, specifically with the soldiers back during the Holocaust, the German SS soldiers that murdered people, literally killed children. Well, I was just ordered to do it. No. None of that anymore. We are so done with that bullshit. Never again. Never again. And if it's a hill that I metaphorically die on, then it's a hill I metaphorically die on, because there is no way in hell I will let somebody come and just speak ill will of somebody just because of who or what they believe in. As long as you're following the law, you're not murdering anybody, you're not doing anything ill will towards somebody else. I am a firm believer in freedom of speech. If you want to advocate for Palestine or whatever it is, that's your God-given right. But the moment you start vandalizing, the moment you start disrupting somebody else's life, beating them, harassing them, whatever it is, that's a line you don't cross. And it's just something I wish and I hope today. I do enjoy seeing that these police forces are doing something about it, but why are you allowing it to happen for weeks at a time before you do something about it? We don't need to go down that road right now because we're going to wrap this up. I can see I've been talking for a long time, but I just ultimately want to make sure I get this message out that I hope you will simply take a second. Look at what this movie and what this show is showing you to hopefully make sure that you realize that we never do this again. I pray to God. I know it's different culture, different religion, etc. I pray to God we never do this again. Because it scares me to death what we are truly witnessing in human history today. Big, heavy one tonight. Today, tomorrow, whenever you're watching this. And I'm not going to apologize for it. We need to have these conversations. So I want to say a huge, huge thank you if you're still watching, or if you have watched or listened on the podcast. huge, huge, huge thank you. Sending much love and support to those that maybe feel the same or just simply need somebody else to go, wow, finally somebody else gets it, or so many different other things in a positive light to the topics that we're discussing. So with all of that said, thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you guys next time. Later, y'all.